In the name of Allah, most compassionate, most merciful. Welcome to our channel Learn with Mega. In this short video, I'm going to talk about one of the elements of fiction, which is plot structure. But before that, what do you mean by elements of fiction? When I say elements of fiction, I mean character, point of view, language style, uh, tone, the setting with its place and time. I mean the character, point of view, and plot structure. So the point is the learner should not take these elements for granted because their employment in a literary text differ from one writer to another writer according to his meaning, according to his message. So these elements of fiction are said to be part of the writer's strategies in the construction of his text and at the same time in conveying his meanings. So, what is important about these elements of fiction is that the learner should not take these elements for granted. We have to look how the writer has used them in order to look the meaning behind their use. Okay, so uh, so the way each element is constructed reveals the writer's textual strategies and meanings. So while reading any literary text, the learner would automatically recall this information, of course, about these elements of fiction and activate it while reading. So as far as plot structure is concerned, okay, here, okay, it is the way how the writer arranges the events of the story. Okay, so why do we analyze the plot of the novel or of the story? Because it conveys one of its one of its how to say functions is that it conveys the writer's world view. If we take as an example the novel A Mercy, written by Toni Morrison, is clearly demonstrates Morrison's postmodern position, postmodern view about the world, which is reflected in her writing. And the most here we can read, the most apparent feature in her novel is the fragmentation. It means that here the story A Mercy is divided into 10 parts, and we have seen that the narrator differs from the point of view, differs from one part to another part. In addition to the narrator and the time of the narration. That means the writer sometimes goes into the past to talk about past events in the life of the characters, or to talk about history of racism, or of the beginning of the white settlement in America. So this is just a brief to show how this plot structure so here reflects Morrison's postmodern position in the way that Morrison does not follow linear narrative, right? In this novel, A Mercy. This is just an example. Now, what do you mean? So, plot structure. So, it is the arrangement simply and the sequence of events to develop the basic idea of a story. It means, as I said, how does the writer arrange and organize the events? Okay, does he go? Is it linear narrative? Do we have flashbacks, etc.? And the plot is a planned, logical series of events. Okay, having a beginning, middle, and end. Right. So each story has got a beginning, middle, and end. And we see that some writers do not follow this pattern. Some writers start with the middle of the story and then go to the beginning and then going to the end. Some stories we see that the writer starts with the end of the story, then going back to the beginning of the story to end it by the middle. So here, because the writer how he uses these events is put on purpose to convey a particular position and idea. So as far as if we talk about the short story, it usually has got only one plot. So this is why it is said as Edgar Allan Poe said, that the short story can be read in one sitting. So, if now how the arrangement of the events in the story is divided into five essential phases or parts. At the beginning, we have the first part or the first phase in the events, in the arrangement of the events of the story, is what we call the phase of the exposition. Here, the writer starts with introducing the story, introducing his characters, the names of the characters, their positions, their social status, etc., economic status. There's the setting of the story. Where does the story take place? When does it take place? Every background is related to characters, and setting is set at the beginning, which is called the phase of exposition. Then, after this phase, now the events start to activate, okay, to move forward. And here we go to the phase what rising action. In this rise action, there are events between these are events between the introduction and the climax. The climax is the most important point, the top of the events, okay, the most important point, the most difficult point in the life of the characters or in the events, right? So the rising action is the type of events which lead to the climax, okay, where it is time when events start to become complicated, okay, and then the conflict is revealed. So after the conflict is revealed, okay, we go to the next step of climax. So before that, what do you mean by conflict? Or let's talk about conflict. So here, conflict is essential to plot. Okay, it ties incidents together and moves the plot forward. It is not merely limited to arguments. Conflict can be any type of struggle the main character faces. Okay, we are going to deal in detail with character conflict later on in the coming videos when we discuss the element of character. Okay, considering the short story, there may be only one central struggle. It means one conflict. Contrary to the novel or drama, we can have many central struggles or conflicts, in addition to sub conflicts or what we call minor obstacles. Okay? So within a short story, there may be only one central struggle, or there may be many minor obstacles within a dominant struggle. The climax, it is the third phase in the development of the events, okay? As I said, it is the most difficult moment in the story, that is in the life of the characters, and it is considered as the turning point of the story, where the events take a new direction. And it is a moment when readers wonder what will happen next, and ask if the conflict is going to be resolved or not. So here, after the phase of the climax, then the resolution starts to appear in the following phase, which is called the falling action. Here, the resolution of the main conflict begins. So, events and complications start to fall into place. That is, the the problem, the struggle starts to be resolved. Solution. Come up with a solution. So these events, they are between the climax and the denouement. The denouement or the resolution, which is the last phase in the plot, in the arrangement of the events. So we come with the last phase. It is called resolution. So it is the final outcome of the events in the story. There is resolution. Sometimes the problem is not resolved, and to leave a space, it is done on purpose in order to leave space for the reader to imagine the end, how the problem would be resolved. So, finally, how you write about plot structure, just take into consideration the following ideas. First thing, it is important to read the story at least twice, especially if the story is not very long. Second, you have to determine the main phases of the plot. That means the introduction, the rising action, the where is the climax, where is the falling action, and where is the resolution, the denouement. Then relate. It means if the story comprises these five elements, it means at the same time you have to relate each phase of the plot with the corresponding event from the story, of course. Then it is important also to clarify the connection between one phase and another, because when we talk about plot, here we are talking about a relation of causality between the events of the story. We understand or we make it clear the motivation of the characters in their actions. And the last thing is, of course, you relate the overall plot structure to the theme of the story and the author's worldview if possible. So that's all for plot structure, my viewers. See you with another element of fiction in next video. Thank you for your attention.